So people ask me all the time, when am I going to shoot a tour of the van? And that day is today. So this is my Sprinter van. I like shooting it in front of this big weird mural. So she is a very sexy Dodge Sprinter 3500 with GoPro mounts mounted on the outside for driving action shots. And a pretty massive roof rack up top. I had a couple of things that I had to do with my van. It needed to solve a couple of problems, and those problems were challenges. So the first problem that the van had to solve was that we wanted to take our dogs camping with us. And at the time, we had two really small cars, two Toyota Yaris's, a 2-door and a 4-door. And to go camping with the dogs, with all the gear that we needed, just was not feasible. I mean, we could make it work, but we generally had to bring two cars. I should point out that one of my dogs weighs 40 pounds, 45 pounds, and one weighs 60 pounds. So they're not little dogs. And so the first idea was that we wanted to build the van around having two separate doggy crates, one for each of them. And Matilda, the older dog, gets in her crate when we get in the van and goes to sleep and is fine. Eloise is another story. She rarely uses her crate. The second problem that we had to solve was kayak and gear storage. And not just kayaks. I have a 17-foot long touring kayak that I use for work and I use for fun. And I also have two stand-up paddleboards that I use for work and that we use for fun. And I needed to be able to carry both a 17-foot kayak and two stand-up paddleboards on the roof of the van at the same time. And that limited me in terms of space on the roof for the other things that would have to be up there. One of the things that would have to be up there is obviously a vent fan. And then the other thing would be a solar panel. And so it limited the amount of space that I had really for a solar panel, because everything is a set size. The only thing that was variable was the solar panel. So the roof has a 90-watt solar panel, which actually sticks out a little bit over the front of the van, over the driver compartment of the van. It's right in front of the vent fan, and the kayak does shadow part of the solar panel obviously when the sun's in the right place, but it's long enough that it's right next to the solar panel. So those were the two big things that we had to get: space for the dogs, and then space for kayak and stand-up paddleboards. And we did that, but it dictated just about everything else that we did. The other guiding principle for our van build was simplicity. We wanted it to be relatively simple in terms of systems. So I was able to buy an off-the-shelf Goal Zero battery and charging system. In part because I work in the outdoor industry, I was able to get a discount on that stuff, but it was super easy and it was super simple. I also knew that we only needed the solar to run the lights in the ceiling, the vent fan, and then have the ability to charge iPads and a laptop and GoPro cameras and things like that. So we didn't need a huge solar array. The 90-watt panel that we've got is big enough, but that sort of simplicity theme transferred to everything else that we were doing. I built a countertop big enough for a 2-burner stove. It doesn't have a built-in stove. We don't have an oven. I don't have running water. I've got a 4-gallon water jug with a spigot. We definitely don't have bathrooms and showers. We do have, however, a queen-size bed. And so that was really our build criteria, was keep it simple. The other thing is, I'm not a craftsman, right? I learned how to build things on film sets, which means things only need to look good from 30 feet away and in one direction. And so if you get close to the stuff that I've built, none of it is super pretty, but it's all super functional and it's built really strong. And so I didn't want to build kitchen counters. I wanted things to be versatile. I wanted things to be changeable. The van gets used really for two things: for my wife and I and the dogs to go camping and playing, and then I use it for work in the summertime and in the spring and the fall. And so it's sort of my office for teaching in the outdoors. And so behind me, I've got standard bins that are on a shelf that come in and out. And sometimes those bins have food and cooking gear and camp gear and stuff like that. And sometimes they have the stuff that I need for work: the paperwork, the clipboards, the little gear, stuff like that. But what I really needed was a place that I could work and do paperwork and stuff like that. And so here's my counter space. And this gives me the ability to do course paperwork and keep track of everyone's paperwork. It's usually a little bit more crowded than this. But then when we flip things around, I needed to be able to use it as a camper. And so this counter is sized to fit a 2-burner stove. This one is pretty small, but at some point it'll be replaced by a regular Coleman 2-burner stove. And so there's plenty of room to do prep and to cook and things like that. Also, in line with keeping things simple, I didn't want to put in a refrigerator. So I decided to just put in a Yeti cooler that I can drain relatively easy. Yeti coolers are great. They work really well. The downside is they're heavy, and so I just made sure I never had to lift it. And so at the moment, it drains just through a garden hose. Eventually, it's going to drain out through a hose running out through the floor. The Goal Zeros were a super easy off-the-shelf system that we could use. They're only about 30 amp hours each. I bought this one at a discount. I bought this one used at a garage sale. It doesn't work real well. The chaining cable, or the ability to chain them, didn't work. I think there's some problems with the circuit board, and the USB, one of the USB ports doesn't work. But I can charge it via the solar panel, and it still gives me 2 working electrical outlets. So it works. It's not great, but it works. But this is the primary unit. 13 watts, still charging a battery. So they're good units. They're nice off-the-shelf systems. If I had it to do over again, or the next time I build a van, I'll probably build a system from scratch. Oh, 13 watts are the lights. The side window, which I hesitated to do because I really wanted to be able to park the van and just make it look like a a cargo van, made life when you're stuck in the van due to bad weather far better, far more livable. So we really enjoy it. And it's nice to have that cross ventilation, and it was really pretty easy to install. We also did blackout curtains on the front and the back. It was super simple. It was relatively inexpensive, and a good way to just block out light when we're parked, so that if you look in the front windows while we're parked, all you see is black in the middle of the night. So built directly behind the 2 dog crates are just 2 big, huge storage bays. This one is mine for gear when we're camping, and then this one is Tracy's. And so we can just fill it with whatever we need. And then when I'm working, I just fill everything with the gear that I need. The bottom bay is 7 feet deep and goes under the dog crates. And we have a rug for when we're camping and a ladder for getting on the roof. Though I've learned how to climb up on the roof really easily, so I generally don't use the ladder all that much. And then this is the view from the other side. This is the bed, obviously. And you can see straight through up to the front. So really simple design. We wanted to keep it simple, and we'll keep building on it as we go forward. There's still things we want to do to it this year. That is the van build. We tried to keep it simple and workable, and we'll keep working on it as time goes by and continue to improve it. Yeah, so that's the van build. See you outside.